Which foods were so dangerous that America built a whole government agency to fight them? The answer is milk, meat, and a bottle of fake medicine. On June 30th, 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt signed the Pure Food and Drug Act, the law that grew into the FDA. But he did not sign it out of nowhere. Two disasters forced his hand, and a third, decades later, forced Washington to strengthen it. Here is how a glass of milk started it. Go back to New York City, 1858. Right next to the whiskey distilleries sat cramped cow stables. The cows were fed the hot, boozy grain, mush left over from making whiskey, a slop people called swill. The milk that came out was thin and blue, so sellers stirred in water, eggs, flour, and plaster to fake a rich, creamy white. They sold it as fresh country milk. In May 1858, Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper ran a brutal expose, with drawings of dying cows too weak to stand. The New York Times printed an estimate that swill milk killed 8,000 babies in a single year. City officials tried to bury the story and even claimed swill milk was good for children. It did not work. In 1862, New York passed its first milk laws. For the first time, someone was checking what was in your glass. Move to 1906, and a book instead of a milk pail. Upton Sinclair spent weeks inside the Chicago meatpacking plants, then wrote a novel called The Jungle. He wanted readers to care about the immigrant workers. Instead, they gagged at the meat. He described rotten beef, rats ground into sausage, and workers who fell into the rendering tanks and got sold as lard. Sinclair later said he aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, hit it in the stomach. President Roosevelt read the book, then sent his own inspectors to Chicago. They confirmed the horror. Within months, on June 30th, 1906, Roosevelt signed two laws, the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act. That second law put the government in charge of food and medicine. Its small enforcement office would keep growing, and by 1930 it had a name you already know. The FDA. Now jump to 1930, during Prohibition, when alcohol was banned. People found a loophole in a medicine called Jamaica ginger, nicknamed Jake. It was sold in drugstores as a cure, but it was mostly alcohol, so people drank it to get around the ban. To pass a government test, a Boston bootlegger named Harry Gross needed his Jake to look medicinal. So he mixed in a cheap industrial chemical called triorthocresyl phosphate. It was a nerve poison. Across 1930 and 1931, it paralyzed an estimated 30,000 to 50,000 Americans. Their hands and feet went limp, and many walked with a strange, flopping step that people called the Jake leg. Blues singers wrote songs about it. Doctors filled medical journals with it. And Washington finally saw that the 1906 law had holes. The Jake disaster helped push a tougher food and drug law into place in 1938. So the FDA is not just a dull building full of paperwork. It was built from a poisoned glass of milk, a stomach-churning novel, and a bottle of medicine that paralyzed tens of thousands. Every rule on your food label is a scar from a disaster like these. That is your food for thought. New food history every week, so stick around for the next serving.